All right. There's a lot of news coming. Things are flying all over the place. You know, as it becomes more obvious to the electorate, it's harder and harder for the fake news to try to convince you what you see is not what's happening. And that's why they're talking about the polls are tightening. Joe Biden's barnstorming. He hasn't stormed a barn since he was 20, I bet you. Anyway, he's going all over Pennsylvania. If Joe Biden was up by 7 and his campaign knew he was up by 7 in Pennsylvania, they would not have him in Pennsylvania. They'd have him out there working on districts where he was in a much closer race. And if he was even close in Texas, they'd have him down in Texas. So don't believe the hype. Don't believe the news. But we have to play the game as an aging football coach. Right down to the final echo of the final whistle, we have to play the game as if we're losing. So you got to go out and vote, and it's like a wedding invitation. It's a +1. You got to grab a friend and take her, him, they, whatever they identify as, get them down to the polls and make them vote with you, because we got to run up the score, that's for sure. Joined right now by the CEO of Canary LLC, Dan Eberhart. He's the author of a couple of books. And one is The Switch, America's Global Energy Renaissance, and most recently Switching Gears, which just came out this month. So Dan, this whole fracking thing with Biden has been absolutely ludicrous. As it stands today, you know, Donald Trump folks will say he said it, he's going to transition off oil, and then he'll say I never said it. So the voter has never gotten a binary answer from Joe Biden on this. How do you read it?
Oh, I'm a businessman. I just read it as Joe Biden's a politician. He's trying to have three sides of a two-sided argument. He's, for banning fracking in a Democratic primary. Now he's not going to ban fracking because he needs Pennsylvania and wants Texas. But then he's also going to ban fracking on federal land, trying to appease the environmentalists. I mean, to me, it just sounds like a typical politician that doesn't know which way is up, but wants to have his cake and eat it too, while also taking a picture of it.
Yeah, it does seem strange. I know your first book, The Switch, America's Global Energy Renaissance. For many years, we were told that our reliance on foreign fossil fuels was one of our greatest national security threats, because we had to rely on the rest of the world. Under Donald Trump, we became a net energy exporter, a net oil exporter. So we finally had that renaissance where we are energy independent. Why would anyone think that taking away fracking or federal subsidies or fracking on federal lands, why would that help us in the global scheme of things?
Well, it wouldn't, and I think it's ironic. First of all, there was a tweet brought to my attention earlier today. Joe Biden is for banning fossil fuels, but he keeps having these drive-in rallies where you're supposed to bring your car for social distance. So he's, mixing and conflating things there. But more importantly, look, if we didn't have the fracking boom, if we didn't have horizontal drilling and the technologies we invented in America, we couldn't have had the Iran deal, which I think was a bad deal, but it's one of the, accomplishments, quote unquote, using air quotes, of the Obama-Biden administration. We couldn't have pushed back on Iran if we needed the oil. We couldn't push back with Russia on sanctions if we needed their oil like we did 10, 20 years ago. So, I think we need fracking, not to mention the just more common sense view of, look, it's 600,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. It's 10 million jobs nationally tied to this. And this is a time when we need those jobs.
Brother,
and those jobs keep energy.
Brother, let me ask you this, and you're making some tremendous points. What about, Trump's foreign policy? It seems like, many of the OPEC cartel nations have become a lot more friendly to the idea of being peaceful with Israel to make their friend Donald happy. So at the same time, we're no longer beholden to Russia and Iran. We seem to have a lot more leverage in the Middle East now with the oil producing countries there, because we know we don't need them either.
No, exactly, and I think that's a great point. I had the good fortune about a year ago to meet with Netanyahu in Jerusalem, and he sort of presaged this point with Trump is really opening doors by throwing away the establishment playbook about what can't be done in the Middle East and really trying to rewrite things from a blank sheet of paper. And he didn't quite say, the Abraham Accords and what's happened this year, But I'll tell you what, it's really refreshing to have this Trump, this America First strategy in the Middle East, where he has thrown away what the establishment says can't be done, and has been able to get it done.
Right. I heard him the other day. He was talking about, he said, you know, the Serbs, they've been fighting for years. They've been fighting for centuries. He said, and we're doing business with both of them. And I said, well, why can't we just get them to the table and tell them both we're not going to do business with either one of them unless they're peaceful? And he said, in 20 minutes, they were hugging each other. No one ever tried to call them to the table. It's like kind of practical stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, and this is what I think we get out of Donald Trump is, these DC politicians have all been marched in one direction and groomed their whole life for this and that position, and they're trying to not make mistakes. They're so busy trying to not make mistakes that they don't actually get anything done.
It is crazy. I mean, Trump was also saying, presidents for 40 years have been promising to move the embassy, the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, and all of a sudden, within his first year, he did it.
Yeah. So I had a conversation with Ambassador Friedman in Jerusalem about this, and they, the State Department initially told Trump that it would take 3 years, possibly longer, to move the embassy, and Trump said, "You got 90 days, figure out how to do it," and left the room. And you know what? They got it done to the amazement of everyone. And the way they got it done is they just moved us into the already pre-approved consulate in Jerusalem. But apparently the State Department couldn't come up with this idea on its own. Amazing to me.
Yeah, part of his stump speech when he gets to Israel is he says, they wanted me to pay like 600 million or a billion or something. He said we did it for 500 grand.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So, Dan, thanks for joining us today. Your new book, Switching Gears, just came out. It was published this month. I did a little thing the other day where I was talking about, I thought the worst thing that Joe Biden did in the debate was admit we're going to transition off of fossil fuel. And I just put it into this perspective. When you're rooting for your pro football or baseball or basketball team and they say it's a transition year, that's a bad thing. When some new manager comes in to your office and says we're going to go through a little transitional period, usually a bad thing. And transition off of fossil fuel, to me, is a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's if I hear that about one of the sports teams that I follow, I think it must be an awful throwaway year. Look, this is people's jobs, this is people's livelihoods, and even more important for consumers, we're looking at the price we pay at the pump has fallen, especially adjusted for inflation, has fallen a lot. And it's because of fracking. So it brings us jobs at home and cheaper energy. And the fact that Joe Biden and the Democrats are against it is just more proof in the pudding that these guys have ideas that don't make good common sense for what this country needs right now, which is more jobs and a growing economy. And consumers need to be have every break they can get. And I just think that we don't need more of these failed policies and hugging the Green New Deal right now.
When you think about it, I mean, I'm not a big commodities guy, but I understand the science a little bit on fracking. The scientific and technological, geological advances that were kind of the origination, the origins of fracking, right? There's so much innovation there. It's almost, I know your article says, he can reverse the shale miracle. The way, the fossil fuel companies figured out how to get underneath and get wide and get in between these layers, it's nothing short of a miracle. And that led to the Renaissance, right?
Yeah, no, it's really been amazing. So we go down about 2 feet. Imagine you put a straw in a glass of soda or water or whatever, and the straw is pulling from the bottom surface where the straw is open. Well, with fracking, we basically figured out how to make the straw go sideways, and then we punch a bunch of holes at the bottom of the straw, and so we can pull from a lot more surface area with relatively little added additional cost to the well. I'm just trying to be a little simplistic right now.
Yeah, no, it sounds...
But it really helps push the cost of energy down.
Of course. Well, it sure sounds like it. All right, Dan, we got to have you back. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Dan Eberhart, CEO of Canary LLC. Check out his newest book, Switching Gears, published just this month. We'll take a quick break, do some news of the day and other fun things here on a Money Monday edition of Liquid Lunch.